It is 6 in the morning and the house is quiet. You come down into the kitchen before anybody else is up because those 20 minutes are the only 20 minutes in the day that belong to you. You flip the switch on the coffee maker. You hear it start to gurgle. You stand there with your hand on the counter waiting for it, and you look around at your own kitchen in the gray light, and it looks fine. It looks clean. The board is wiped down. The sponge is in the sink. The pan is on the stove where you left it. There is nothing wrong with this room. That is what you think. And I understand why you think it, because everything in that room was sold to you by somebody who told you it was safe, easy, and modern, and you had no reason to doubt them. My name is Frank Redhawk. I grew up on the reservation out in the high desert, in a house where nothing came into the kitchen unless the land gave it or my grandmother made it. She fed 9 people out of a room smaller than most people's bathroom. She had fire, clay, cast iron, hardwood, ash, fat, and salt. That was the entire kitchen. 6 things. And in that house, nobody had the stomach trouble, the skin trouble, the headaches, and the dragging tiredness that people in this country now treat as normal and pay a doctor to manage. Today, I am going to walk you through 13 things sitting in the average American kitchen right now that a native household never used, never needed, and never missed. And for every single one, I am going to tell you exactly what we used instead, what it costs, and what it saves you. Because telling a man his house is full of poison and then walking away is not teaching. That is just scaring him. Here is the part that is going to bother you, and I want you to sit with it. Not one of these 13 things was invented to make your food better. Every one of them was invented to be sold to you again. The sponge wears out. The spray runs out. The coating scratches. The container warps and stains. The bottle empties. That is the design. My grandmother's skillet is in my kitchen right now, and it is older than the state I live in, and it has never been replaced once, and that is exactly why nobody makes money on it. 12 of these you can fix for under $30 total. Some of them cost you nothing at all. And number 1 is the one you touched this morning before you were awake enough to think about it. Stay with me. Number 13 is the plastic cutting board. Go look at yours. Do not just picture it, go look at it, and run your thumb across the surface. Feel those grooves. Feel how the white has gone gray and soft where the knife lands most. Now think about where that material went. It did not evaporate. Every one of those grooves is plastic that used to be on that board and is now somewhere else. And the only somewhere else it could have gone is into the onion, into the chicken, into the bread, into your family. Every drag of the blade shaves a little more off. They sell you these by calling them hygienic and dishwasher safe. What they do not tell you is that plastic offers no defense against anything. Hardwood does. Maple and walnut carry compounds in the grain that are hostile to bacteria. Leave the same bacteria on hardwood and on plastic overnight, and the wood comes back cleaner. That is not a story from the reservation. That is measurable. And it is why every serious old kitchen in this country ran on a wood block. My grandmother cut on a slab of hard maple her father shaped. When it wore down, she went at it with sand and a river stone, oiled it with rendered fat, and it came back new. That board fed 3 generations, and never cost $1 after the day it was made. A solid maple board runs about $25, and it is the last one you will ever buy. Oil it once a month with any food fat you already have. Never soak it. Stand it up to dry. Number 12 is the sponge in your sink. That yellow and green rectangle is the dirtiest object in your entire house. Not the dirtiest in the kitchen, the dirtiest in the house. Dirtier than the toilet handle. Dirtier than the bottom of the shoe you wore into the yard. Think about what you have actually built there. Thousands of tiny wet pockets, held at room temperature, fed food 3 times a day, and never allowed to dry. If somebody paid you to design a machine that grows bacteria, that is the machine you would build. Then you take that machine and you wipe the counter with it, and then somebody sets a child's cup down on that counter. Here is the thing my grandmother's kitchen had that yours does not. Nothing in it stayed wet overnight. Nothing. We scrubbed with corn husks twisted into a wad, with dried gourd fiber, which people now sell as loofah in the bath aisle for $8, and with sand and a rag for the burnt pots. Every one of those things either dried out completely or went into the fire. There was no permanent wet object in the room. That is the whole fix, and it costs you nothing. Either use a real loofah and hang it where air moves, or keep a stack of cotton rags and wash them hot every 2 days so you always grab a dry one. If you are keeping the sponge, wring it out hard and hang it on the faucet. Never leave it lying flat in the basin. That alone changes it. Number 11 is the blue soap under your sink.
Pick the bottle up and read it. It tells you it cuts grease. It does not tell you what it is made of, and there is a reason for that. Most of what is in there started as petroleum. They add dye to make it blue and fragrance to cover what petroleum smells like. You are washing the plate your food sits on with an oil product, then rinsing it for 4 seconds, then trusting that rinse with your family's dinner. Understand that the blue is for you. The dish does not care what color the soap is. Somebody in a room decided that blue reads as clean, and you have been buying that decision every month for 20 years. We cleaned with 2 things, wood ash and yucca root. Ash and water make lye. Lye and fat make soap. My people were making soap before anybody had a word for chemistry. And yucca root, pounded and dropped in water, foams on its own and cleans hair, hands, and pots with nothing added. You already have the ash if you have a fire. 2 cups of clean hardwood ash in a jar of hot water. Let it settle overnight. Pour off the clear liquid on top. That liquid cuts grease harder than anything on the shelf, and it costs 0. Wear gloves. It is strong. If you would rather buy, get a plain bar soap for dishes with a label short enough to read out loud. Number 10 is the air freshener. Somebody in your house sprays this after cooking fish. Maybe it is you. Understand what that can actually does, because it is not what you think. It does not remove a smell. It cannot remove a smell. What it does is lay an oily film across the inside of your nose so you stop registering the smell that is still in the room. You are not cleaning the air. You are numbing the person and adding a chemical fog on top of the original problem. And you are doing it in a closed room where children breathe lower down, closer to where it settles. We used smoke, cedar, sage, sweetgrass, juniper, not only for ceremony, though it is that too, but for the plain practical reason that smoke from those plants kills what is floating in the air. Then it fades and the room smells like nothing. And nothing is what a clean room is supposed to smell like. If smoke is not for your house, simmer a pot. Water on low with orange peel, a cinnamon stick and a few cloves, or a handful of rosemary. That is steam carrying real plant oil, and it does the same work. Open a window for 2 minutes while it goes, and you have done more than the can has ever done. The can is about $6 a month. Orange peel is what you were already throwing away. Number 9 is the plastic film on the roll in your drawer. Watch yourself use it. You pull it over a bowl, and half the time that bowl is still warm, and then it goes in the refrigerator and the film sags down and rests on the food for 6 hours. Heat plus plastic plus fat touching. Those 3 conditions together are exactly when plastic gives up its components into whatever it is against. Warm chili with film lying on the surface all night is not storage. That is soaking. And then people put it in the microwave with the film still on, which adds steam and direct heat to the same 3 conditions. My grandmother covered a bowl with a plate. That is the whole method. A plate on a bowl. For wrapping, we used cloth waxed with rendered fat, which softens in the heat of your hand and holds its shape around a rim, or the food went into a clay crock with a lid, and clay breathes just enough that things do not go sour the way they do sealed in plastic. The plate costs nothing and works today. Wax cloths run about $12 and last a year, or you make them by melting beeswax onto cotton with an iron. And if you change one single thing from this whole video, change this. Never put plastic over hot food.
Before I show you the next part, I need to tell you something. Everything I teach on this channel and the methods that never made it to camera, I wrote down. All of it. 62 methods, 9 sections, in the order you should do them, with the materials and the real dollar amounts written next to each one. The cooling, the heating, the food, the pests, the cleaning, the whole household organized. It is called the Native Household Manual, and it costs less than 1 week of groceries. The link is in the pinned comment. But do not leave yet, because the next 8 are the ones people argue with me about, and number 1 is in almost every kitchen in this country, and it gets used before anybody in the house is even awake. Number 8 is aluminum foil. People wrap fish in it. People line the entire oven pan with it. People wrap a hot potato and leave it wrapped for an hour on the counter. Aluminum is a soft reactive metal. Put it against heat and then add anything sour, tomato, lemon, vinegar, and it does not just sit there politely. It reacts, and you can see it happen with your own eyes. Unwrap a tomato dish that sat in foil overnight and look at the foil itself. Those little holes, that gray pitting, that metal did not go into the air. It went into the food you are about to eat. We cooked wrapped, but we wrapped in things that grew. Corn husks, big green leaves, wet clay packed straight around a whole fish and set into the coals, which bakes hard and lifts the skin off clean when you crack it open. Parchment paper is the store version of the same idea, and it runs about $4 a roll. Keep the foil for the outside of things, never for the side that touches food, and never for anything acidic. Number 7 is the plastic container drawer. Everybody has it. It falls out when you open it. 40 lids, 30 containers, none of them matched. The problem is not the container sitting cold in the refrigerator. The problem is the cycle. Hot food goes in. It gets microwaved and goes hot again. It goes through the dishwasher and gets hot a third time. Over and over, twice a week, for 4 years. Every one of those heat cycles takes a little more off that plastic. Go pull out an old one. Cloudy, warped, scratched, and stained orange in the corners from spaghetti sauce. That orange stain is your proof. Material moved from the sauce into the plastic, which means material was also moving the other direction, into your lunch every single time. We stored in clay, in tight woven basket, in hide, and in dried gourd. Clay crocks sealed with fat, and cloth kept food through a whole winter. Glass jars are the modern answer, and you can get a dozen for around $15, or free if you save the jars that pasta sauce and pickles already come in. Let food cool on the counter before it goes into anything. Never microwave in plastic. And throw out every container that is cloudy, warped, or stained, because those ones are done talking to you and have started talking to your food. Number 6 is the cooking spray. 1 second of spray in the pan every morning. Sounds like nothing. Look at what actually leaves that can. A little oil, and then propellants, emulsifiers, and often a silicone-based anti-foaming agent to keep it moving through the nozzle. You are turning all of that into a mist over a hot burner and standing directly over it breathing while you cook. There is a second thing nobody warns you about. That spray builds a sticky brown varnish on your pan that no soap will lift because it has polymerized onto the metal. The product sold to keep your pan clean is the exact thing destroying it. Go look at the rim of your pan right now. That brown gum around the edge is spray, and it is why that pan is going in the trash 2 years early. We greased with fat, tallow, lard, bear grease, sunflower. A spoon of it or a rag kept sitting in a jar of fat that you wiped around the pan. Nothing airborne, nothing in your lungs. Keep a small jar of tallow, lard, or ghee next to the stove with a spoon in it. Half a spoon spreads further than you expect. Your food browns better because fat carries heat and mist does not, and the drippings you save from cooking make the next batch free. Number 5 is the big jug of vegetable oil. Ask the question nobody asks. How do you get oil out of a corn kernel? You cannot press it. There is not enough in there to press. It has to be pulled out with a chemical solvent, then bleached because what comes out is gray, then deodorized at extreme heat, because what comes out smells wrong. By the time it reaches that clear plastic jug on the shelf, it has been through a factory process that has nothing to do with cooking. Then you take it home and heat it again in a pan, and heated further, it breaks down into compounds that were never in the plant at all. Now compare that to how we got fat. You cooked an animal, the fat came off, you poured it in a jar, it went solid, and it kept for a year in a cool room. That is the entire process. No solvent, no bleach, no factory. Cook with fats that hold heat. Tallow, lard, butter, ghee, coconut. Use olive oil cold or on low only. And save your drippings, because that is free fat with better flavor that you were pouring down the drain. Number 4 is the plastic water bottle. The case in the garage, the one that has been in the cup holder in the sun since Tuesday. 2 things work on a plastic bottle: heat and time. A bottle that sat in a hot car for one afternoon is not the same bottle it was that morning, and neither is the water in it. When they test that water, they find plastic particles nobody added. It came off the container. Then people refill the same bottle for 3 weeks and set it back in the sun, which is the same experiment run over and over. We carried water in gourd and in clay, and clay does something no plastic can. It sweats a little through the wall, and that evaporation pulls heat out. So a clay jug in the shade holds water colder than the room it is standing in, with no ice and no machine at all. That is not a story. That is physics, and you can prove it in your own kitchen this week for the price of an unglazed jug. Steel or glass bottle, about $20 once, and you are done with this forever. Number 3 is the non-stick pan. This is the one people defend hardest, so let me be careful and fair. The coating on that pan is stable when it is cool and not stable when it gets very hot. Put an empty, non-stick pan on high for a few minutes, and it goes past the point where that coating begins coming apart. Anybody who keeps birds already knows this, because a hot non-stick pan will kill a bird in the same room. Sit with that for a second. Whatever is coming off that surface is strong enough to kill a living thing standing across the kitchen, and you are leaning over it. Then add the scratches, metal forks, pans stacked inside each other in the cupboard, steel wool on a bad night. Look at your own pan. Is the surface perfect? It never is, and a scratched coating is a coating that is leaving. We cooked on cast iron, on flat stone, and in clay. Cast iron seasoned with fat becomes genuinely non-stick, and it does it with nothing but polymerized fat, no coating at all. Eggs slide the same, and the pan gets better every year instead of worse, which is precisely why nobody advertises it. A cast iron skillet is about $25, and it will outlive you. Heat it, wipe fat in it, cook. No soaking, no harsh soap. Dry it on the burner and wipe it with fat while it is still warm. 2 months in, you will forget the other pan existed. If you keep one non-stick for eggs, never preheat it empty, and never take it past medium. Number 2 is the plastic tools in the crock by your stove. The black spatula, the plastic ladle, the slotted spoon that came free with the set. Watch what you do with it. You put a plastic tool into a pan sitting at 350 degrees, down into hot fat, and you hold it there and you stir for 2 minutes. Then you pull it out and look at it. Scarred edge, worn face. Some of them visibly melted along the working edge. That material went somewhere. It went into dinner every time, and there is no other place it could have gone. The black ones carry a second problem on top. A lot of black kitchen plastic is made from recycled feedstock, and recycled black plastic has been found carrying flame retardant compounds that came from ground up electronics. That is in a spoon that you stir soup with. We used wood, bone, horn, and shell. A carved paddle for the pot, a stirring stick, horn spoons that never burned a child's mouth. Any one of those could sit in a boiling pot all day and give the food nothing but wood. Wooden spoons run about $8 for a set. Throw out every plastic tool with a scarred or melted edge tonight. That takes 90 seconds, and it is the highest value 90 seconds in this entire video. Which brings me to number 1. The coffee maker. Here it is. The one almost nobody questions, because it happens before anybody is awake enough to question anything. Follow the water through that machine and do not skip a step. You pour cold water into a plastic reservoir. It gets heated inside the machine. It travels through a plastic tube. It runs against a plastic housing. It drips out through a plastic basket. It lands in the pot. And if yours has a lid that sits on the carafe, it steams against plastic for another 2 hours on the warming plate. That is hot water in direct contact with heated plastic for the entire journey, every morning, for as many years as you have owned it. And you drink it first, on an empty stomach, sometimes twice. Now open the lid on the reservoir and look inside. Look at the water line. See the film. See the pink or the black ring along the bottom edge. That is a biofilm, and it is alive in there because that machine never fully dries out. Warm, wet, dark, and closed, which is the same problem as the sponge, except this one you are drinking. We made hot drink the same way for 1,000 years, and every part of it was water, fire, clay, or metal, and the plant. Cedar tea, mint, wild bergamot, sumac, pine needle. Nothing else touched it. A steel stovetop kettle and a French press or a pour-over with a glass or ceramic cone runs you about $30 total and lasts the rest of your life. It costs you 4 extra minutes in the morning, and it removes the single most repeated plastic exposure in the average American day. If you are keeping the machine, run a full pot of vinegar and water through it every 2 weeks and leave that lid propped open so it dries out between mornings. So there is your 13. The board, the sponge, the soap, the freshener, the film, the foil, the containers, the spray, the oil, the bottles, the pan, the tools, and the coffee maker. Now hear me before you go, because I do not want a single person walking away from this video in a panic. You are not fixing a kitchen in one afternoon, and you should not try. Panic is what makes a man spend $400 in one trip on things he did not need. And that is the exact trap the store is hoping for. Do it the old way. One thing at a time, as things wear out. The plastic tools go tonight because that is free. The sponge changes this week. The plate goes on the bowl starting with dinner. The scratched pan goes when it finally goes, and cast iron takes its place, and then it never needs replacing again as long as you live. Do it that way, and inside a year, you will look around that room and realize almost nothing in it can hurt you, and almost nothing in it will ever need buying again. That is the real difference between my grandmother's kitchen and yours, and it was never about being poor. Her kitchen was cheap because everything in it lasted. The block, the crock, the skillet, the spoon, made once or bought once and then used for 50 years. Your kitchen is expensive because it was designed to wear out, and that is not a mistake anybody made. That is the business. If what you learn today is the kind of knowledge you want in your house, the manual is there. The Native Household Manual. 62 methods, 200 pages, written the way I would explain it if we were standing in your kitchen. The link is in the pinned comment. Read one section. Do one method this weekend. Check your next bill. Now tell me in the comments which one of these 13 is still sitting in your kitchen tonight. Be honest about it. I read every one, and I will tell you straight whether it is worth changing today or whether it can wait until it wears out. And next time, I am taking you into the bathroom, because if the kitchen bothered you, the cabinet over your sink is worse. 11 things in there that a native household replaced with 3 plants and a handful of ash. Take care of your house. It will take care of you.